I'm good. I'm excited. We're glad to have you on the show with us again. And of course, not only do you have a very busy week with everything AEW with Dynamite and Collision and Dynasty, you've also got the NFL draft in what is it, 9 days, give or take?
Yeah, very excited about that.
I mean, how do you ever sleep? I mean, we've always asked this every time.
I've I get a little bit of sleep. This time of year, not as much.
For sure. So let's talk about it. I mean, there's a lot of things going on. You've got Dynamite, which is tonight, and then you've got Collision, you've got Dynasty. I mean, after one of the biggest weeks in pro wrestling, what is the excitement level heading into the debut of the brand new AEW pay-per-view Dynasty?
Oh, it's so exciting. I cannot wait for AEW Dynasty. It's this Sunday on pay-per-view. We're going to have a great show tonight on TBS, Wednesday Night Dynamite, the go-home show, as we call it. It's the last Dynamite before Dynasty, and this is going to be a great show tonight. We've got some of the best wrestlers in the world, some of the best matchups in the world, and some really interesting stories coming into place ahead of Dynasty. A lot of stuff happening tonight on TBS before this big pay-per-view this weekend.
Right, absolutely. And I was looking at it. Of course, Dynamite tonight is in Indianapolis, and then you've got Collision and Rampage in Peoria in Illinois. But I'm looking at the banner for the show poster, and I see RVD on there. Mm-hmm. Is RVD, is he all elite? I mean, he's now on the poster.
Well, it's 420 on Saturday, so I thought it would be very fitting to bring RVD to Peoria and have RVD as part of this weekend's Collision. So we're going to have a huge Dynamite tonight on TBS, a big weekend of Collision and Rampage, 3 hours Saturday, and it all leads up to the big pay-per-view this weekend, Dynasty, and I can't wait to get started tonight on TBS. This is just going to be a loaded, stacked, awesome show tonight. I'm so excited about it. I cannot wait for it. We've got Claudio Castagnoli versus Will Ospreay.
Going to be a dream match. Jeez.
Yeah. Amazing. Real dream match. And leading into another dream match this weekend, Ospreay versus Claudio's partner, Bryan Danielson. So much great wrestling starting tonight on TBS.
Absolutely. And, last week on Dynamite, I'd like to talk about this because, I mean, it's all everybody's talked about. Young Bucks aired the footage from All in London. Considering it caused a spike in the ratings, we've all seen the reports. People have discussed it nonstop, literally for a week. And, of course, you've got the scapegoat. Jack Perry had a monster reception last week at New Japan in Chicago. Do you consider airing the footage a win?
I think that the Young Bucks played the footage ahead of AEW Dynasty to really get in the head of FTR. I think it makes a lot of sense. Definitely FTR have great history with the Young Bucks. They've had some great wrestling matches, and now it's turned into more of a personal rivalry. I think that we've heard from the Young Bucks that, they were upset about the way the match turned out at Wembley Stadium. They were upset about the result. They were upset that FTR had the gall to try to shake their hands after everything that went down. And you're right. Jack Perry got a huge reception at New Japan Pro Wrestling in Chicago this weekend. So I definitely think coming out of that it's led to some very interesting results. And it'll be interesting to see what happens in the big World Tag Team Championship match this weekend, FTR versus the Young Bucks in a ladder match in the finals of the AEW World Tag Team Championship tournament at Dynasty this weekend. And you won't have to wait until the weekend to see the Elite, because the Young Bucks and Kazuchika Okada are going to be wrestling tonight on TBS on Wednesday Night Dynamite, taking on Penta, Daniel Garcia, and Okada's opponent in the Continental title match at Dynasty, Pac. So it's going to be a great, great match tonight ahead of a great, great pay-per-view this weekend.
And I have to say, AEW's really kind of reignited my love for the 6-man tag stuff. I think maybe a decade ago when Ring of Honor was, under the previous leadership, that was a big focus for the company. But since the AEW trios titles have been introduced, it's kind of like, I don't know, there's been a different spark about it and stuff. And some of these trios matches have just been unbelievable. So kudos to that. I just want to let you know that. Speaking of that, AEW's had a massive year this year with free agents. Mercedes Moné, Okada, as you mentioned, and then of course Will Ospreay. Can we expect, maybe some of these big signings to slow down a little bit, or will you continue to go after big name free agents as they become available?
Whenever there's a great star who becomes available, any of the top men or women in pro wrestling, we want to look at that and seriously consider signing anytime there's a big star available. Anyone who would add to AEW or make the AEW shows more exciting. We got a really exciting lineup coming up on TBS tonight for AEW. And every week we're looking to bring in top names, top stars. I don't intend to slow down. I want to bring in big name free agents anytime there's somebody that can add to the company and make AEW better.
Right, for sure. And it's always great when we as wrestling fans, and this, I mean, we get so excited when you see all these things happening, and then all of a sudden, we get the all elite graphics sent from your Twitter of somebody, and it's like, holy crap, he got them, he got her, he got him. Mm-hmm. One of the things that has kind of taken the internet by storm currently is Nikki Bella recently commented that she almost called you and was ready to return to wrestling, especially after seeing you getting Mercedes Moné into AEW. At some point, would you entertain that phone call?
If Nikki Garcia ever wanted to come into AEW, I would be very interested in that. I think the world of her. I have so much respect for Nicole and Brie. They're like family to us because Brian is like a part of my family, and that makes Brie and Nicole part of the family. Mm-hmm. So have so much respect for both of them. And if Nikki was interested in coming to AEW, we would love to have her here anytime. That was so great to hear. It means the world. And I just like both of them so much. I think they're really, really cool and really, really great stars that would add a lot to AEW if they ever wanted to come.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, getting back to Dynasty, the Sunday pay-per-view live from St. Louis, it has turned into a pretty stacked card pretty quickly. So taking off your boss hat and maybe addressing this as a fan, is there a match in particular that you're kind of the most excited about for Sunday?
There's several matches I'm really excited about. I don't want to give a cop-out answer, but it's such a great show, and there's so many big matches to talk about. I mean, where do you begin? Certainly the World Championship match with Samoa Joe versus Swerve Strickland. I think that's where I'd start and say that that's a huge match. It's very interesting to see this matchup. Very interesting to see how far Swerve Strickland has come. He's been with AEW for about 2 years now, and the rise of Swerve has been incredible. Samoa Joe is one of the greatest wrestlers ever. He's a great world champion for AEW, and the rivalry between these two has been really heating up for months. And this is their first one-on-one match. I cannot wait for Samoa Joe versus Swerve Strickland. Swerve attempting to become the first ever Black AEW world champion. It would be incredible for Swerve to potentially become the first ever African-American AEW world champion. On the other hand, we have a great champion right now in Samoa Joe, and he intends to hang on to the championship as he has done for months. And we've seen Joe in some dominant matches. He's one of the best wrestlers ever. Swerve is on the rise. I think that's a great matchup. Also really pumped up for Bryan Danielson versus Will Ospreay. Mentioned that a little bit earlier. We'll get a look at Will Ospreay tonight. Everybody can watch that for free and see a match that could easily headline a pay-per-view for free tonight in Claudio Castagnoli versus Will Ospreay. And Claudio's teammate, partner Bryan Danielson taking on Ospreay this weekend. It'll be really fascinating to watch Danielson versus Ospreay at the pay-per-view, and I can't wait to watch Claudio versus Ospreay tonight for free on TBS. Also mentioned that Kazuchika Okada will be wrestling tonight, teaming with the Young Bucks against Penta, Garcia, and Pac. Of course, Penta, a close friend of Pac's, his partner in the Death Triangle. Garcia, a good friend of FTR. And I'm really, really excited for them to team up with Pac. And of course, we know Pac taking on Okada at Dynasty. That's another match I'm really excited for. Okada versus Pac, the Continental Championship match. We have this great mixed tag match tonight on Dynamite with Adam Copeland teaming with Willow, taking on Brody King and Julia Hart. That's a great match tonight on TBS on AEW. And it's setting up two big matches at the pay-per-view, Willow versus Julia for the TBS title. Before they wrestle on the pay-per-view for the TBS title, they'll be fighting on TBS tonight on AEW, plus the big trios match, the 6-man tag involving Adam Copeland and the House of Black, with Adam teaming up with Mark Briscoe and Eddie Kingston. It's a loaded lineup at AEW Dynasty. It's so stacked, and I'm really excited to take a closer look at it tonight on TBS.
Yeah, and you're like, when you start talking about what's happening tonight on Dynamite, and then of course with this weekend leading into Dynasty, it's like we are just getting, legendary dream matches for free tonight and this weekend before we get to the Dynasty pay-per-view on Triller TV. And like, I'm getting kind of spoiled, Tony. Like, you're like, hey, I'm giving you these dream matches now for free, and here's like the little sampler platter. Now buy the pay-per-view and you get the main course.
Well, it's a lot of fun because tonight on TBS, it's going to be a great show. And for all the fans watching tonight, there's going to be a lot of connective tissue to the Dynasty pay-per-view. We've already talked about it, but there are some ways that these matches connect to the Dynasty pay-per-view. And I think it's really exciting stuff. When you have great matches like the ones we have on TBS tonight, and they all link up and are involved, peripheral or adjacent or complementary to the stories that we're telling and to what's going to happen in the big matches at Dynasty, I think it's awesome. And tonight's show should be excellent. Like you said, we had a great audience last week, and I'm really excited. Hopefully everybody will come and check the show out tonight on TBS. We're on at 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern. I know you're on in a lot of different markets across the country. Hopefully, if you check your local listings and check out TBS tonight, I promise you're going to see a great show tonight.
Absolutely. I mean, you talk about the stacked card. I mean, it's just, it's fantastic to get all this stuff leading into Dynasty. And speaking of Dynasty, I kind of want to piggyback off something that you had mentioned earlier. And we've had Swerve on the show, and we talked to him about what it would mean to becoming the first African-American AEW world champion. What would it mean for AEW and Swerve if, actually, let's not say if, because we know this is going to happen. We're putting it in the universe. When he defeats Samoa Joe and becomes the first African-American AEW world champion, what would that mean for AEW and Swerve?
Well, potentially, that would be a huge milestone in the history of AEW and the career of Swerve Strickland. He's got a huge opportunity, and we'll hear from both Samoa Joe and Swerve tonight on TBS ahead of the big championship fight on Sunday at Dynasty. And I'm sure they're both going to have a lot to say about it. So it would mean the world to AEW. It would be a huge milestone. And I think it would mean a ton. I think it would mean so much in the career of Swerve Strickland. It would be certainly the highlight of his career so far as a big rising star in wrestling. He gets great receptions everywhere we go. Whenever the music plays and the question comes out, whose house? Everybody in the crowd always screams out Swerve's house. And people love Swerve. I think he's got fans all over the world. And potentially it could be a great milestone for AEW if Swerve was to become the first ever African-American AEW world champion. He's already been a great world tag team champion in AEW. He's a great part of the company. It would be a huge milestone. And I know it would mean a lot to Swerve. And as for what that could potentially mean, I think he'll have a lot more to say tonight on TBS. So I'm looking forward to hearing from Samoa Joe and Swerve both ahead of the big title fight this weekend. They're both going to be talking about it And who knows what could happen tonight on TBS on AEW.
Absolutely. And I can also vouch for the Everybody Loves Swerve, because I'm the DJ for the Predators here in Nashville, the hockey team. And I make it a goal of mine to always play wrestling theme songs during the show. And anytime that I've played Swerve's theme song, I see Nashville Predators fans doing, the Swerve dance that Nana has done. So we can vouch that Nashville is big fans of Swerve.
Yeah.
You have great fans there. When we've come to the Predators games, you do a great job DJing, and it's a great venue, and you get great support, and it's always fun when you play the AEW themes. I love to see that and hear that.
Oh yeah. I think we may be able to squeeze one more question in for you, Tony.
Sure.
This past weekend, John Moxley became the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. You were in attendance and were able to catch that match. What does that mean for the partnership between New Japan and AEW?
Well, to have one of the greatest stars ever in AEW, one of our biggest names, John Moxley, go out and win the IWGP World title, become the top star in New Japan, it is incredible. It's such a huge achievement for Mox, and it means the world to the partnership between AEW and New Japan. And I think we're all excited about it, both sides, AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling. And we'll hear from John Moxley. He will be at Dynamite tonight. It'll be the first time we've seen Mox on Dynamite since before AEW Revolution.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't wait for Mox to come back to AEW tonight on TBS. It's going to be great.
That's
Man,
awesome.
It's an exciting time for wrestling fans for sure. An exciting week for wrestling fans. I mean, it all kicks off with AEW Dynamite tonight, which leads us up to Sunday night AEW Dynasty in St. Louis. Tony, I know you're a busy man. You got to get ready for all this fun festivities of wrestling and, of course, the NFL draft that's coming up here soon. It's always an honor and a pleasure to have you on the show, and we look forward to seeing AEW in Nashville very soon.
I really appreciate you guys having me on the show. Thank you for having me on to talk about AEW, and I'll see both of you on TBS for AEW Dynamite tonight.